What matters most for childhood brain organization? It is a IQ analysis. It is a investigation of why the pores be stupid. And the argument being made in the video, sorry, not in the video. God, I'm so YouTuber brained. Because we were talking about Dan Olson. The argument being made in the article is that the stress and shame of poverty and social stigma lead to, and I'm not joking, an excess of cortisol that causes a feedback loop that degrades your mental and physical acumen. That the being in an environment where you are stigmatized, even in like ephemeral or abstract ways, like even if you're getting all your food and you're reading the books and so on, like the knowledge that you are part of a social underclass causes your brain to maintain a chemical and hormone cycle that depreciates your mental abilities. It's the same thing as minority stress, yes, but it's an extensive and empirical bit of research on it. So this is the reason why, like, there are failings even in like twin studies. Like a common rebuttal to the race IQ, heritability argument is twin studies, right? Say you have a set of black twins, identical twins, they're genetically identical, and one of them is raised, by a black family in the hood, whatever, and then the other one is raised in like an affluent white family. And what you'll often find is, yes, the one raised in an affluent white family has a higher IQ because they get access to better educational resources, but they still lag behind the norm for their environment. And this explains why. Genetics aren't a factor between the two. They're identical twins. But even the black child who is raised in a wealthy, affluent environment has to deal with the neurosocial stress of being out of place, of feeling like they don't belong. They are, after all, an adopted like orphan in a white neighborhood. Probably leads to like othering, different cultural experiences, racism, right? Like even if they get access to the same books as everyone else, they know that they are part of a social underclass. It causes stress, higher cortisol. They are self-conscious about it. It makes them feel worse about themselves, even in ways that are very, very difficult to psychologically detect. And this causes genuine, actual brain damage. I need to read the full thing. I skimmed through all of this. As you can see, it's very empirical. IQ scores, screen time, sleep duration. It's a bunch of stuff that correlates to like the long-term psychological effects of these social influences. But yeah, I want to read the full thing. This is the kind of shit I haven't engaged with in a while, because this seems like genuinely new research. For a while, it's just been like twin studies or whatever. But I'm very excited to get into this when I have a little bit of time. No, 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 nuts. This is not about that. This is about like an improvement on that model of research. Because there are limits to twin studies. If being a victim of racism is itself capable of lowering your IQ, which it is, that's the unambiguous result of this study, then twin studies could never fully account for the racial IQ gap. Look at this. SES and IQ are fairly strongly correlated. R equals 0.31. This might seem like a spurious correlation, but seriously, take a look at it. SES standard deviations, look at the line. We're talking about a line that reaches across this range of standard deviations. We're looking at a line that reaches from below 80 IQ up to around 110. What's SES? It's sociological or social. Hold on. I forget. It's SES. Oh yeah, socioeconomics. So it's like a broad analysis of socioeconomic factors, including whether you're subject to bigotry and so on. But this is so even with other factors accounted for, like your socioeconomic, like even outside of the empirical information available to you, it has such a huge effect on your expected IQ. This is literally not genetics. SES is socioeconomic status? Yeah, basically. IQ is your parents? No, that's saying the opposite, actually. We tracked the SES IQ correlation in every training sample. When the correlation between SES and IQ was R less than 0.1, brain IQ prediction performance was poor. This was not the case for varying the training sample by the p-factor. Brain IQ predictions only performed well when IQ and SES were correlated in the training sample. It's literally more predictive than like other models you could use to determine average IQ scores across a population. See? training model IQ, SES and IQ predict each other correlatively. Like by knowing one, you can know the other, or at least you can predict them more effectively. SES dominates childhood brain organization. Zip code matters most. This is in reference to the common, like, if you tell me their zip code, I'll tell you their income. If you tell me their zip code, I'll tell you their IQ. Where like the environment you grow up in has a huge impact on the argument here is that it goes beyond just poverty, right? Because you can be rich, but if you're still part of a racial or social underclass, that can affect you too. Anyway, I will read this in full later. Right now, I've only had time to skim this, but this is a very good bit of... This is one of the reasons why I don't like it when lefties say IQ is fake, because it's not. IQ is not a measurement of general intelligence. Nothing is. We have no measurement of GE, but it does measure stuff. It's not like a spurious or meaningless measurement. It is predictively valuable. But saying that it doesn't matter at all kind of feels like flipping the chessboard a little bit. Like you're letting yourself get cornered by race scientists, and then your response to it is to pretend that the game doesn't matter at all. But in reality, if you developed a better understanding of the game, you could checkmate them. And this, to me, this article, this feels like a pretty decent checkmate. Not to say the average racist will care or read it or whatever. They won't. But it is good to have the arguments. You know? IQ is a completely arbitrary measure of intelligence. It's not completely arbitrary. IQ reliably predicts your cognitive abilities in a wide variety of ways. It's not a perfect measurement of GE, because if it was, it would not be affected by education. But it's not arbitrary, especially not as a child. The younger you are, the more valuable IQ test results are, because you're pulling more for how is IQ tested. You take a test. GE, do you mean GI? GI, sorry. Yeah, general intelligence. I said GE. I don't know why I said GE. Yeah. What are the tasks in the IQ test? It's a test. I mean, it's a lot of, you have to, you can take one. Spatial reasoning, logic puzzles, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. For the most part, IQ tests, when properly administered, are not racially biased. That is to say, gone are the days when you would measure the intelligence of like a Sudanese child refugee by asking them to name like 3 Hollywood actors or whatever. For the most part, it has been boiled down into a relatively raw intelligence assessment. But even then, again, it's not, because if it was, it wouldn't be affected by education. My argument is that there's no such thing as GI. It doesn't exist. There is literally no default brain state, because that implies that environmental influence is just like additional chaff you add on top of it, rather than fundamentally altering the substance of your brain. But we know reading more, being more active in your community, socializing more, fundamentally change the structure of your brain. They don't just like add little extra bits to it, or like, include a thing inside of it or whatever. They change the structure of the brain. So like, what is GI? It doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't, like, conceptually, I don't think it can exist. Yeah, that's something someone of your reading level would say. You fucking watch yourself, bucko. You watch yourself. That's unfortunate, Juliet mindset. That sounds like a profound bit of brain damage that I hope you're one day able to recover from, Keep in mind, malleability goes in both directions. Oh, okay. The concept of IQ is the most Hitler shit I've ever heard of. What the fuck, bro? Genuinely, what do you think IQ is? Like, it is a fact. Okay, the Hitler argument would be that IQ is determined only by genes. But the argument that I'm making is the exact opposite. Like the literal exact diametric opposite of it, which means that it's kind of the opposite of Hitler shit. IQ is just a test we use to determine cognitive performance. And to that end, it determines it pretty well, like pretty reliably. Like on average, a high IQ person will be better at cognitive tasks than a low IQ person. There is variance in the population, in terms of cognitive performance, the same way there is in physical performance. It's just that it's very heavily influenced by environment. Like there's a genetic factor, of course. I just don't understand why it's horrifying to believe in that. It's a real thing that really exists. It is a little bit like the birth rate issue nuts. Yeah, I agree. Like it sets off alarm bells in people's heads, but like there's no reason to be afraid of it. Learning about IQ and the arguments surrounding it make you better at dealing with racists and their arguments, not worse. Knowledge of it doesn't like mean you're ceding ground or whatever. Vaush needs to go back to school. What does Vaush think IQ is? IQ is not an objective fact. What? IQ is a measurement. It is a test that we have made. It is a measurement of performance. It exists only by its own standards. Like IQ isn't an objective fact in the same way that like any test result isn't, like your SAT score isn't an objective. I mean, it's a fact what result you get, but like the standards of measurement aren't like enshrined in the code of the universe or whatever. But it measures itself, but it does predict a wide variety of, cognitive tasks, like, or performance in those tasks. Isn't the average always 100? They standardize the test so that the average are 100. They like re-standardize the test to try to get that outcome. Yeah. What do you think people will do to those people who score low? Olympians, respectfully, I think that you haven't. Okay, Olympians, are you suggesting that we never test anyone on any cognitive skills because it would be bad for the people who do poorly? Like, should we never test anyone for anything? Because the implication is that we should never test people because people who do poorly in the tests would be discriminated against, which I guess might be true, but not really just specific to IQ, right? That's kind of like an everything thing. Like, no more testing literacy. What do you think they'll do to the illiterate? That kind of stuff, Yes? You don't think we should test anyone for anything? Okay. I don't know. I don't really agree with that. I think that we should, like, especially knowing that IQ is extremely influenced by environment, the same way that literacy is. Like, literacy rates are higher in Germany than they are in the, Central African, in like, we're in like West Africa or whatever. But that's not because genetically Germans are more capable of reading. It's because they got fucking books in schools over in Germany. And I mean, they do in West Africa too. I'm going to guess fewer, probably fewer. But so, like, is it bad to measure literacy? Because, like, what will we do to the illiterate people? Should we not measure literacy in like Mali or Eritrea or whatever, or Zimbabwe, because we're concerned about what it implies? It borders on eugenics. It really it doesn't. But you're also typing slowly, so I can't really sustain the rambling that I'm doing on my part. Like, I'm describing the opposite of eugenics right now. It seems like this is an ick argument. I think it's a bit of an ick argument. I think measuring literacy is in an effort to get it up, whereas IQ in a lot of people's minds is static and final. You're totally correct. I just think we should fight back against it. Like, legitimately, and I'm not trying to virtue signal or whatever, but when I hear like X population has a low average IQ, my thought is like, damn, we got to get some books over there, stat or whatever. We got to address the poverty. We got to address the whatever, the wide variety of environmental factors that contributes to that. My thought isn't like, oh, their brains be like that. A lot of people think that, and that's a problem. But that's why I think we need to be vocal about this. Being vocal about the nurture argument, the environmental argument for IQ and, cognitive malleability is how we reframe people's perspectives. Because imagine a world where the racists are like, actually, your literacy score is determined at birth. Whites are naturally more literate. That's why there are more literate whites than there are literate blacks. And then your response to it was to go, we shouldn't measure literacy then. Like, wouldn't that be bad? Wouldn't it be better to, say, no, I think you can change literacy over time. I think there's an environmental factor to this. Why would you cede the argument to them, I guess, is my point. Our argument's harder to uphold because it's so long term. Literally all research on the subject supports us. Every time scientists engage with this argument, the nature versus nurture argument, more evidence comes out in our favor. Brains are super fucking malleable. It's one of the reasons why I've been so insufferable about the, like, you can be autistic at one point of your life and not be autistic in the future. I am a huge believer in the malleability of brains. I think that, like, sometimes stuff as seemingly inconsequential as, like, what you eat or having an allergic reaction or getting a concussion or whatever else can cause permanent changes to your brain that are not, like, fundamentally distinct from the way your brain was ordered before. Like, if your brain changes as the result of external stimuli, I don't think that means you had an original brain and now your new brain is like the wrong brain. I think that you just have a brain and whatever it is right now is what it is. And sometimes it's different, Your brain's a muscle. Your brain is a muscle, figuratively. And muscles can change in size and shape. If you really wanted to get wacky with it, you could surgically alter the connection points of muscles. You could alter basically every feature of a muscle can be altered through some kind of surgery or training. So, it would be silly to me if someone was like, no, this is the natural state of your muscle. And then you work it out and it's like, oh, well, that's an unnatural state of your muscle. It's not really either. It's just, it is what it is. It changes. You change. Life changes. Do you think you can fully get rid of autism? I think your framing betrays the misconception that I'm arguing against. Autism, as we describe it, is a neural state. It references a your adherence to a set of descriptors that doctors use to evaluate your behavior and your thoughts and your feelings. But your brain can change over time. So it's possible that sometimes your brain and your behavior and your thoughts meet those criteria, and that at some other point in your life, they may not. And that might not be because you're masking or whatever. It might be your brain is just different. At a time, you met those characteristics, and now you don't. And I think that it is possible that you might change the result you get on a test because you're masking, but that's a conscious effort. It might also be possible that your brain has literally just changed, like your priorities, your beliefs, your thoughts. People change quite a bit over their lives. So over like 20 or 30 years later, um maybe you just do not meet those criteria anymore. So I don't think you're getting rid of autism. And I think that that's like a very eugenicist way of framing it too, because I don't think that brains are normal and then they can have the autism condition. I think that all brains are what they are, and we use general terms to describe their states, but a brain with autism, or more accurately, a person who has been diagnosed with autism based on the results of their tests, that's not like an abnormal, it's not like you have a normal brain and then there's like a stamp on it that makes it abnormal or something. You know what I mean? Yes, autism has a genetic component. Everything has a genetic component to it when it comes to brain and body and so on, but it doesn't invalidate my point. I'm only saying that it also has, like, it can have a genetic component, but also change over time. Like that doesn't invalidate my argument towards neuroplasticity. We should embrace the fluidity of life, the fact that our identity and our personalities change over time. We shouldn't try to like set ourselves into a bunch of boxes and just like permanently live in an effort to reify and redefine the confines of our self-perception. You can't fix yourself out of autism? No, because fixing is a very, very loaded term. It's a very loaded term, Again, that implies that like your brain is like a fault that you're correcting or whatever. But like you're saying, there's room to improve. Improve is also a very loaded term. I don't think there's anything morally wrong about being autistic, or like cognitively wrong or whatever, The whole point of the psych test that we subjected Nazis to after World War II was the realization that their monstrous behavior wasn't caused by a recognized psychological defect. He's right, but bad at explaining his studies. I feel like I'm pretty good at explaining my... That's fine. The autism is just a term we have to describe a general neural configuration that we can only abstractly and indirectly identify through a variety of descriptive markers. And over time, brains change, and sometimes, it can be configured differently over time. This is a fact, Neural plasticity is a fact. It is a real thing, and I think it's good to acknowledge that and good to embrace that. Sorry, buddy, I'm already en route to the subreddit. No, fuck. Personally, I find it quite liberating to know that we have the potential to change elements of ourselves that we would like to change, Like, not just with regards to autism, but depression, anxiety, a wide variety of neuroses. Like there are even conditions like schizophrenia. You can potentially have them or not have them depending on different experiences in your life. You can get PTSD through an experience, so presumably you can unget it. It's just not that simple, right? Like it's easier to, get a concussion than it is to unget a concussion. I don't think you can unget a concussion, but if a concussion can change your personality, presumably an equal and opposite concussion can change it back. You get me. Yeah, you just need to handsome Squidward yourself into neurotypicality. Exactly.